That's
on
the first
this?
video I couldn't finish. It was just sick. To remind everybody what happened, we had a 19-year-old who had a confrontation with a 23-year-old immigrant Sikh from India, and we don't really know the particulars except the Sikh person was carrying a quote-unquote ceremonial sword, which is allowed apparently under DEI auspices, that he has religious exemption, but it was a pretty big blade, and he stabbed this 19-year-old white male repeatedly, and then his brother called, I guess it was near his home, his brother called the police and said that the perpetrator was a victim of racism. The police came to the scene. The perpetrator said he had a little mark, I couldn't even see it, and that this racist on the ground had attacked him and he'd only defended himself. That was all they needed. So then the DEI police, and that's what I'm going to use because that's the thematic narrative, they went to the anti-DEI person who was dying with a deep wound to the chest. His lungs were filling up with blood. I can relate to that because I had the same experience with, 3 pulmonary arteries that were cut or broke apart, and I had 2 to 3 liters immediately in my lung cavity, and that's not a good feeling when you can't breathe, and you'll die with that blood in your cavity. They have to suck it all out. So he was there living, and the police saw that, and he was laying down, and then they kind of pulled on him to prop him up, and he said, "I'm dying, I can't breathe." And they just completely ignored him and kept the cuffs off, and he literally bled to death in front of them. And they were just clueless, and they were more worried about the perpetrator. And then he went in, and they went home, and they hid the murder weapon. His mother did. So then they found out the particulars of the assault. They came back, and the brother, I don't think, has been arrested, even though he was the one who called in with the fake narrative that it was a matter of white racism, which really killed the kid. That was the one that prepped the police. And in their defense, they knew that if they had arrested the Sikh perpetrator, they probably would have lost their jobs. And then the family hid it. And then the Sikh leader in the community said, "Oh, this is terrible. People are blaming us. We're victims of hate now." And my answer to him is don't identify an individual as a collective unless you want to be a collective. So there was a member of your Sikh community who killed a person, murdered him. He is a murderer. He was convicted. And then there was another member of that Sikh community, that member of that family, who lied to a police officer. That's a felony. And then they were an accessory act for the fact. That's a felony. All you have to do as a self-proclaimed Sikh leader is say the following: this does not represent the Sikh community. We are a group of individuals, and any time that we find one of the members of our community is acted antithetical to our values, we condemn it most heartedly. All he had to say. But instead he turned around and said, well, the poor Sikh community is now getting death. If you're going to be a collective, then people are going to say, well, then this is what you do. If you want to be individuals, then act like individuals. The same thing here in the United States. No one has been more supportive on this broadcast than I have, and in person, of the Sikh community. Sometimes I kid my Sikh friends that one of the largest temples is 2 miles from my house.
You've talked about them many times.
Yes, they're all good
and
friends. They're
yeah,
wonderful people. They're wonderful citizens. I don't even think I should use the term they're wonderful people. They're wonderful individuals that I
right,
know.
right.
One of the most admirable is Simon Ciotti. He's a good friend of mine. I like him enormously. But my point is this. I teased them. I said, if you're going to have this huge Sikh temple with these flags of the Sikh nation, why don't you at least put an American flag on your temple? Sometimes I've seen it, sometimes I haven't. But when the Sikh, overwhelmingly, these accidents were perpetrated by illegal aliens, and here in California, I got a noise just a second. Overwhelmingly, the drivers did not know English, and they did not take the regular test, and they were given exemptions. And there was an attempt by the federal authorities to say those licenses that were fraudulently issued and led to some deaths of innocents would not be valid in other states. And the Sikh community then said, we want a letter in support, and that was the same idea. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you say, these members of the Sikh community who entered the United States illegally and resided illegally and got driver's license under fraudulent circumstances and then acted recklessly and then killed some people by their reckless. We condemn these people. They're not representative of our community. They didn't do that. And I think that's another sign that it's going to hurt the community and terribly hurt the community.
Well,
is that too loud for everybody?
No, we can hear, Victor. It's good to know that you are on a working farm.
Yes, so I'm on a working farm, and there's a big machine that, and it's very important that they finish. The other thing, very quickly, Jack, this is the anti-George Floyd scenario.
Right.
So here we have parallel tracks. Here is a 19-year-old without a record who is minding his own business. Here is George Floyd, a career felon who broke into a home invasion and put a knife at a pregnant woman's belly, a convict who, in the process of encountering the police, was A, committing a felony by passing counterfeit currency, B, committing a felony by resisting arrest, and C, committing a misdemeanor by being under the influence of fentanyl. And then the police intervened in both cases. In the case of George Floyd, they used an approved police maneuver to subdue his violence, and due to his ongoing COVID, due to his fentanyl intoxication, and a jury found to Officer Chauvin's using his knee, he passed out, and he said he couldn't breathe. At that point, they called the ambulance when they thought that and the ambulance came and they took him to the hospital and he perished. And Officer Chauvin was given a murder charge, convicted, and he's been attacked in prison, I think, and now that I've understood. And then the country's reaction to that was 4 months of looting, arson, violence, 35 people killed, 1,500 officers injured, $2 billion in arson and damage, courthouse, precinct, church burned, 14,000 people arrested. And that day almost ruined the universities, because after that, they dropped the SAT and penance for admissions. And now, of course, UC left-wing faculty are saying, please bring back the SAT. The students are too poor to do the work. We don't know what we're going to do. Stanford said the same thing. We can't water down the curriculum anymore because the graduates cannot get the type of jobs that Stanford brand would ensure them. The employers caught on to us. It brought everything. It changed the military with DEI. It changed the popular culture with critical race theory. It started defund the police, all from that incident. In Britain, there will be no mass arson, riots, nothing. He will be the murderer was convicted. I hope the members of the family that either hid the weapon or gave fraudulent information to the police will be charged and held accountable. And I hope the Sikh community will say that these people do not represent our values and they're not really members in standing of our community. We want to integrate and assimilate into British culture.